Всем привет, я Brandon. So every year since 2017, I've made a post on social media kind of going over the evolution of my pedal board and what I might be rocking for pedals when I go up on stage and play or when I'm recording my song covers. And I decided that in addition to that, with the new decade coming in, and in the vein of several music YouTubers I like to watch on a regular basis who usually do this kind of thing as an end of year thing, yet with me posting all about my pedals every year at the start of the year, I figured, let's do this for instruments as well. And so today's video, this is going to be all the instruments in my collection that I currently use or use in some capacity, something like that. And just some quick details for starts for every instrument I'm going to show you today. I am going to detail the tunings I use for each instrument, maybe kind of the stories that got me to get that particular instrument, and just other fun details about any of the instruments that I do have. I do also want to say, with only one exception, all of my instruments have Ernie ball strings on them in some capacity, whether that be guitar, bass, or the other one you'll see in this video. And most of them have also these little Dunlop pick holders, which they're just amazing. You need these. That's just my opinion. And so we'll get right into it, going into first my bass guitars. Bass is, of course, my entire existence in music at its core. It's even in my Instagram name. This is just my absolute favorite instrument of all time. I have been doing it for 10 years. I started in 2009. And my story with getting into bass was I had started on 6-string guitar, which again we'll cover later. My high school band teacher got in touch with me. He knew I was starting guitar, and kind of the original plan at that time, my freshman year of high school, was that at the semester, or start of our next semester, I would hop in with the school jazz band on guitar, but then I got word from that same teacher that, hey, we're losing our bassist that was with us in marching band, who would also do stuff with the symphonic kind of, and jazz bands, and we need someone on bass for jazz, on electric bass. Would you maybe be willing to make the switch if you can do it? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. Little did I know this would be the catalyst for me carrying on and doing this instrument 9 times out of 10 with anything I do music related. And I don't have the first bass that I first owned anymore, but nonetheless, with the ones that I do have to show here today, again, this is my true ultimate passion instrument, so there's that. So for starters, and I know I've made this abundantly clear on my socials in the past, this is my Yamaha Hang on, everybody. So the thing with these Yamaha model or bass names, it's kind of like playing alphabet soup. So to start off, this is my Yamaha BBG4S II bass guitar. This is a 4-string bass. This was the first Yamaha bass that I ever came to own. Kind of how I got this was I was just a couple days shy of finishing up my undergrad and doing my undergrad graduation ceremony, and I was like, you know what? I'll get a new bass. We'll call it that. And I walked into the Guitar Center that's near my university that I graduated from, and I just saw this. I was, instantly struck by it, and little did I know this would be the instrument that would start my ultimate love for Yamaha basses. It is, of course, in this gorgeous sunburst finish. What I use this for mainly, all styles, but in terms of tunings, that is, I'd use this, of course, in standard 4-string bass tuning, and then on the headstock down here, or up here, I do have a hip shot extender that, flip a switch, I can go down to drop D in a pinch, and that's amazing. I enjoy that greatly. I have not had the chance to use this kind of on a live setting too much as of recent, but still, I've had situations in the past where flipping a drop D on the fly is absolutely amazing. And this is the one that started, the hardcore love of Yamaha instruments, or basses in particular. And I am forever grateful that I got this when I did, and what it's done for me and when I've been able to use it. So this is Yamaha, the beginning. So coming up next, this is my Yamaha RBX800AF bass. This is a fretless bass, one of 2 fretless basses I own. It's in this kind of gorgeous midnight blue finish, I guess we could call it that. How I came to acquire this was I did have a fretless bass, fretless bass guitar, It wasn't kind of what I wanted though. Then that's another thing I should have mentioned with my bass guitars, with these Yamahas in particular. They are all on active electronics, which I absolutely love that in basses. And so when I was able to find this one day, just kind of perusing eBay, I was instantly elated when I could see that I could get this at a pretty solid price, and all it would take was just me selling off a old Nintendo little game system I had. So I did that. I basically got this, or traded a little handheld game system for this, and I have loved it ever since. This bass in particular, all my Yamaha basses are on wound around strings. However, and I again kind of following some recommendations I read online, this is on flat wound strings, which kind of gives fretless basses that nice mwah sound. So that's nice to have, and then it makes it a ton much easier to slide around on the fretboard, and you can get some pretty funny sounds you can't get on a fretted instrument. So this is loads of fun to play as well. Another thing I found of note when kind of researching this particular model is that, and granted this was based off a page I found through a Google search, which was all in German. So the translation that Google kind of had to spit back at me for the entire website might not be the best thing I could get translated to English, but from what I could only gather, and really from this one website, and I mentioned this in the initial post, that when I got this instrument, the original production run of this particular model of Yamaha bass, and if anyone knows better on me than this, please let me know in the comments wherever you're watching this, because I would love to know. But from what I was able to gather, the original production run of this was between 1988 and 1992. So this instrument is at least by about 3 years older than me. So that's a little fun thing to consider. So there's that. This is a kind of also the only sort of bass that doesn't have any sort of soap bar style pickups. This more has kind of the PJ setting, or pickup kind of setting on it, and doesn't make a difference to me. I still love this instrument to death. I've had a lot of fun using this more for kind of more mellow music. My Russian rocker Beyond Shiva, I use this heavily with that because it's a great fit there. But I've had some fun experimental uses with that. I've done a Marilyn Manson cover on this with playing with a pick on a fretless bass and also with some distortion on it. That was loads of fun. But RBX800AF. Coming up next, this is the last of my 4-string Yamaha basses. This is an RBX374. It is in this beautiful glossy black finish all the way around, even on the going up the neck here. And what I use this primarily for is drop C tuning. I originally, when I got this bass, I had it in E-flat standard, but then I kind of decided later on it would be better to have a 5-string with kind of E-flat tuning, and this would be a lot better for drop C, so I put it in drop C, and now I use it kind of on the drop C metal side of the spectrum for music. And kind of one thing of note, I guess, with this instrument as well, is on the pickups. Yes, if you normally look the picture of this bass up, it has exposed magnetic poles, and what I've got here is electrical tape that's covering the poles. The reason for that is, sometimes you're headbanging and you're recording some metal pretty hard, and the strings kind of hit the magnetic poles, which does not make a nice sound when you're recording. And so the simple suggestion I just got from a couple forums online that I follow was stick electrical tape over the poles and you're good. So I did that, and there's that. That kind of takes a lot of the volatility of the bouncing of the strings hitting or potentially coming into contact with the pickup. So there's that. And another funny thing to note with this instrument is I'm missing 2 control knobs here. These are kind of tough to turn, and I've been quite lazy in getting that, fixed or adding them on. But I think the end goal when I decide to do this is I am going to get kind of like take these 2 remaining knobs off, and as well with the machine heads at the top, I am going to make that kind of like an all black hardware thing, just to match the finish on here, and just keep it cool like that. Kind of the story for this bass is it was kind of coming up on my birthday of 2019, and I just happened to be holding onto a Guitar Center gift card that was given to me by a few of my coworkers from a place I once worked at, a school, and I decided, you know what, or the gift card's gonna, probably knock a little bit off of Guitar Center shipping costs. Sure enough, it did. So I didn't have to worry too much about shipping on this instrument, getting it shipped to Denver. So I did that, and then I got this. Originally kind of used it for E flat standard for a bit. Now it's in drop C. Drop C is something I really want to start getting into more. It's fun to do with metal, and that's kind of what this is specifically geared for with that tuning. So yeah, RBX374. This next Yamaha bassist is probably the one I'm gonna say I've probably been photographed the most with. This is my Yamaha TRBX305 5-string bass, and of course I've got the same kind of thing going on with electrical tape on the magnetic poles of the pickups. This is in a absolutely beautiful kind of candy apple red finish, and I don't know if it will show on the camera here too well, but it does sparkle. This is quite quite the instrument of its own. I mainly use this for standard tuning, 5-string standard tuning, so B standard, as well as drop A for some heavy metal stuff. And I guess that's another thing to praise Yamaha basses for is they are, in my opinion, the absolute most versatile basses that are out there. You can most of the time, give or take, some certain model, kind of what you might use it for. They are extremely versatile, and you can use them across all sorts of different styles, ranging, of course, from heavy metal to country. I absolutely love that about Yamaha instruments, and this instrument again fits that mold the same way, and I am again really grateful to have it. Coming up next, this is another TRBX305, this time in white. Same thing going on with the pickup covers of sort. This one is, again, and I did mention this earlier in the video, this is the one I kind of use for E flat standard. I've had some instances where I've gone and played with groups that they'll play mainly covers where they normally were written in standard tuning, but given how it can be easier for some singers to, sing a half step down. That's what this is for, and I continue to keep it that way. I haven't had an instance where I've had to use E flat standard for quite some time, but nonetheless, I keep it this bass in that tuning just because it is, great there. It's really nice to, with some of the stuff, even if it was originally written on a 4-string and have your low B flat, that can make for making things even lower and even more, gritty, what have you. So that's loads of fun. The one interesting note or kind of story with this bass is when I originally got it, I got it and the neck was totally misaligned. It was kind of a scary endeavor to get the truss rod kind of adjusted on it, but thankfully I didn't wreck anything with that. And then two, the bridge pickup, and I know I had a post way back kind of extensively going into this. The bridge pickup when I originally had first got this bass was totally just wrecked, and it wasn't serviceable. It would intermittently come back to life, whatnot. Thankfully it wasn't really anything wrong with the preamp, but when I went and ordered a new pickup through Yamaha's part ordering service, I did wait a little bit, but it was well worth it to get that bridge pickup, new one in there, get that rewired. It was so easy to rewire it. I didn't have to solder anything, which was nice. So having serviceable pickups was great, and then as I've used this for various E-flatty things, it's been great in that role. So lastly, in regards to bass guitars, there is this tiny boy right here. This is a uke bass, if you will, made by a company called Hadean. Basically, that's just kind of a budget brand of uke basses. Right now, really with uke basses, Kala is the one that I think dominates the market the most on that. And those are, of course, the higher end instruments. I think most I've seen start around $400. Thankfully, this I was able to nab for $160. This is the only bass that I have that does not have Ernie Ball strings on it. Ernie Ball does not make uke bass strings yet, but if they ever do, I probably will get them. What's fun about fun about this bass in so many regards is one, obviously it's much smaller than your average bass guitar. If I'm not mistaken, if I remember seeing this correctly and measuring it, this has a scale length of about 20 inches, My other basses that I've already gone over have a scale length of about 34, so there's that. And so that's why these strings in particular, they're just so monstrously huge, just to maintain tension with tuning. Of course, I just use this with standard tuning. It really works best that way. Really doesn't work well in any sort of drop tunings, just because, again, of how the strings are. The strings aren't any sort of metal, they're more like a kind of a silicone rubber of sorts. This is also the other fretless bass that I have, and what's really fun with this one is, you know, there's not a day, or seldom any day, that that goes by where I am not playing bass or any sort of instrument at some point at any time. But what's great about this is, you know, there are days where I'm just mentally cooked to no end. And so what's great about this is, you know, I can just grab this and start playing some light, you know, jazzy stuff, you know, just kind of sit back and get lost in it. And, you know, brain's not working too hard, but I'm still getting my practice in. And I've had lots of fun with this, and I've still got some videos in the works with this. This is also a fun instrument to bring to shows. I can't count the number of times where I've shown up to a show, I've pulled this out and started playing with it, and everyone's like, "What? What is this? What is he playing?" And so I get a lot of questions at shows about this instrument when I bring it along. You know, kind of best way I could describe it is, it's all the sound and tone of having a full-size, you know, full-scale upright bass without all the immense bulk and having to carry that around. You know, it's got its own case. You just throw it in there and it's super light. And then, you know, it's, you know, you get some kind of fun arrangements with what you can do playing with it. I guess kind of this is different for me in how I normally play bass guitar, where, you know, you've got your kind of, if you're playing fingerstyle, that is, you know, your standard playing like this. I kind of tend to more grasp this like a classical guitar. That just seems to work for me, but I love it nonetheless. And, you know, it's great for, you know, kind of slower, jazzier stuff. So many fun uses I've had with this bass and continue to have going forward. So in moving forward now, after looking at my bass guitars, we are going to look at my guitars. This kind of also warrants a disclaimer, kind of just for me personally. I am no means a great guitarist. This is probably something that is still extremely experimental with me. I have had not too many, you know, kind of things I've done where I've gigged with guitars. Mostly I've done that again with bass guitars. Again, I've had those opportunities. They've gone well so far, but it's still something that is still extremely experimental to me, and I'm still kind of navigating it. You know, it was the instrument I started with when I started getting into musical instruments, but it wasn't the one that really stuck with me the most. So fair warning, you know, just kind of as we go along here. But also at the same time, I also am a big proponent of, as someone, you know, who learns best by just simply doing something that's explained to me and being shown how to do it. That's kind of my rationale for the choice of guitars that I have, and why I just love, I can't stress enough, if you've got the means to, you know, experiment with things and, you know, get a hold of instruments that you can just at least start tinkering with. I am a strong proponent of that, and I think that is a great way to go with learning music. So coming up first in my collection of guitars, this is the one I've kind of been using somewhat the most lately. It's kind of also shiny. You can probably see the camera in the reflection right there. This is my Squier J5 Telecaster. This is the signature model of John 5. John 5, of course, probably my favorite guitarist of all time. He's, you know, currently plays with Rob Zombie's band. He had been playing with Marilyn Manson for quite some time. You know, contributed greatly to several of the biggest Manson releases that were ever dropped. And this guitar I mainly use kind of for, E standard, of course, and drop D. So, you know, it's a two-way instrument in that regard. What I love about this is that it, you know, and I think this is where I figured out all my absolute love of Telecasters. I had held Telecasters in the past. I was like, this just feels right to me. And then when I was able to get my hands on this, I was like, you know what, let's do it. This is the great way to figure out, my first Telecaster. So there's that. The story of how I got this guitar in particular came in the form of, in September 2019, my boss had called and asked if anyone would be able to work on Labor Day Monday. I answered I could, and that kind of ended up being kind of a crazy day in general. That's its own story, and yeah, that was a wild day. And I had already been seeing this on the Denver Music Gear Swap Facebook page, and so I decided, you know, I had already been talking to the guy beforehand, and who sold me this guitar. So Jim, I don't know if you might be watching this. Thank you once again immensely. But I was talking to the guy who sold me this. I was already interested, and I decided, you know what, after that shift I worked Labor Day Monday, I was like, I want this guitar, I want it now. And sure enough, I went and got it. I've held it for the first time. The neck here is just super buttery smooth. It feels amazing to play. And I know some people out there, and I've done videos with this already, may say, why are you using a Telecaster for metal? I fully believe it's possible to pull metal off on a Telecaster, you know, kind of with humbuckers, that is. But it's a great feeling guitar, and this, again, you know, when it comes to, say, my love of Yamaha basses, you know, this is kind of, again, my source now for my love of Telecaster-styled guitars. So there's that. So coming in next on the world of guitars, and you already are seeing a trend here, this is another Telecaster. This is another Squier Telecaster. This is called, or what is it, the Affinity HH, basically just for twin humbuckers. With this guitar in particular, there really kind of isn't too much of a wild story for getting it. I had, you know, I wanted to start getting in again with my black Yamaha RBX374. I wanted to get more into drop C, and you know what, you know, we'll go along with, at least with getting a lot of, or understanding a lot of rhythm guitar. We'll do a drop C Telecaster, and so that's the story behind this. Now, kind of some details with this instrument that reflect, you know, the price I paid for it. It was you know, it was through Musician's Friend. It was on sale, and so, you know, it was like a $150 Telecaster, and that kind of does reflect in some of the quality pieces of this. I did have to, especially up here high on the neck, I had to file some of the frets down. I still got to work some of that out a little bit. Kind of the neck doesn't feel as smooth as the J5 Telecaster, but it still feels great to play in and, you know, move around. Now that I filed the frets a little bit better. And what I've got this, you know, again, I've got this for drop C. I'm having loads of fun with that right now. Getting, you know, just playing a lot of drop C distortion music, metal, and so there's that. I have not used this in a video yet. I am trying to aim to do that soon, whether it be, you know, just even something simple that's in drop C. I don't care how simple music might be. It's more for me about the experience of getting to learn it. It doesn't have to be super crazy and complicated. If it sounds good, it sounds good. But this is, again, something I'm looking to use for drop C stuff. And with the strings on this in particular, I had to, you know, use some fun playing around with gauges and stuff, because normal, or like an Ernie Ball normal regular slinky pack would not be good to go to drop C on this. Thankfully, Ryan Bruce, known as Fluff, he had a video kind of talking about string gauge guides, in particular comparison to Gibson scale and Fender scale instruments. So this is 25.5 inches, same as the J5. So, you know, I based off that, I, you know, kind of got specific strings for this that are a bit heavier gauge, suit drop C a lot better. Things are really tight even playing that low. So I'm glad to have this, and I'm looking forward to eventually getting this featured in a video. So I was debating whether or not I wanted to include this absolute beast of an instrument in this video, because this is the one that I just most recently acquired. What this is, it is not a Squier or Fender, despite it being kind of a Telecaster style body. But this is made by a brand called Michael Kelly. I think it's somewhat of a custom builder of sorts. This is the CC53 model. This is a 7-string Telecaster style body. So if anyone out there is a fan of classic guitars not being, you know, I guess distorted like this, sorry. But you know, I figured at some point a 7-string guitar would be in the midst. But you know, I didn't think I'd be able to ever get kind of like a Telecaster body style without, you know, going way high up on the price thing. But thankfully, I just happened to be cruising around, and this was there, and I was like, well, it's beautiful. I could put 7 strings on it, and, you know, start getting into 7-string. So here it is. I still kind of humbucker setup. Kind of with all my tellies, I'm debating whether or not I want to do any swapping or getting any new pickups. They're all the stock pickups that I got the instruments with. Not quite sure on that yet. Still, for starters and kind of the distortion tones I've been shaping lately, this has been sounding pretty fun and brutal. It's nice having it, being able to, play some of the metal that I like that is on 7-string guitars, and being able to finally get to do that. So there's that. In terms of tunings, I am using this kind of also with the red Yamaha you saw earlier. This is in B standard or drop A, and already having loads of fun with that, playing some brutal stuff. So looking forward to getting more practice in with this guitar, and to get some more videos done with it. Okay, coming up next, first in the realm of acoustic instruments, this is, I don't know the exact, if there is a model name for this particular instrument, but it is an Ibanez acoustic guitar. It does belong to their kind of AEG family of instruments. This is actually, this is full nostalgia trip right here. This is the first ever instrument I ever came to own. This was given to me, of course, by my parents when I was in 7th grade, and I got sick of playing Guitar Hero all the time, and I decided, you know what, I want to go do this for real. And this was, again, the first instrument that I ever got. It was one of those kind of starter pack instruments that came with a little amplifier. I don't have that amplifier anymore. I ended up selling it at some point a couple of year back. Thankfully, that's what this one's for. First guitar I kind of quote-unquote performed with, even if it was just playing simple chords on stage, for like a little kind of community arts program that my hometown had. But what's kind of been how I could describe this guitar in particular, it's like a lost love that you reconnect with, so to speak. I had this instrument, and then I really got invested in bass, and then this kind of just ended up kind of resting with dirty old strings on it, just kind of sitting in family storage. And then I decided one day, I'll just bring it out, maybe throw some new strings on it, and bring it back. And so I have brought it back. I've used it in some videos that have been very fun. I did a Marilyn Manson cover with this. I did an Outkast cover with this, and both of those were loads of fun. So I'm glad I have brought this instrument back to life. I'm glad I never got rid of it. So this is something that is never going to move away from me, unless I'm passing it on to someone. But yeah, I'm really glad to still hold on to this one. So. So coming up next in the world of guitars, this is an Ovation. Well, again, I unfortunately don't have the specific models of this guitar, but this is an Ovation acoustic guitar, whereas my black acoustic that I just showed earlier, it does have electronics in it so I can amplify it. This one does not. It's just a straight acoustic guitar. This was actually gifted to me by my uncle, and I've held on to it, but I just, until recently, and this is something I've still got in the works, I haven't been able to, or couldn't, I wanted to use it for so long, but I just couldn't think of something that I could use it for. And but I did finally come up with something with that, and it's in the works. It's kind of an extensive project that I'm still kind of trying to put together for a song cover even then. And I'm also not going to specify in particular what tuning I have this in. I'm going to leave that a surprise until I actually put out the video that I'm intending to use this now for. What's kind of, I guess, different in this guitar is that with the neck, most of my instruments, they kind of have like a C, C-shaped neck. That doesn't look, or, C-shape, where, it's kind of like a nice little, curve to rest on. The neck on this kind of more is like a V, in that the neck meets kind of more at an angular point, which I had some difficulty actually playing this guitar, and somewhat still do, in that it kind of just didn't ergonomically make sense for me. But with how I've got this guitar set up now, and the tuning that I have it in, it now makes a lot more sense with how I'm using this guitar. I am debating, I've had a lot of serious thought on this, of whether or how to go about getting this thing set to be amplified, whether it be just having a pickup that runs a wire, or a pickup that fits the sound hole and runs a wire out. I'm not too much a fan of that because I like, using wireless, and I like walking around on stage and walking off stage. And then, there's also the possibility of maybe getting in touch with a luthier and getting this set up to where I could use it amplified, build some electronics into that. But I know that definitely would be a lot more pricey to do. So still thinking about that one, still working that one out. But at least for the video that I have planned for this, I do have a way that I'm going to be able to record it and get some good sound out of it. I've already been testing that, and it's going good so far. And kind of when I do the video for this guitar in particular, I'm also kind of looking at doing a behind the scenes of how I do that video. Again, kind of well off from now maybe, explaining what I did to this guitar to get it the way it's going to sound, and how I recorded it, and what it's going to be used for. So the tuning on this, to be a mystery to answer later. And lastly, in the world of guitars on my end, this is not an instrument I play really at all. It's not something I have recorded with or attempted to use in any capacity. But really, the reason I keep this as a memory of a good coworker, former music teacher I worked with, who gave this to me as a parting gift as I was leaving a job at another school I was working at. And this is just kind of a Mahar, I believe that's something based in Mexico, just kind of a classic Stratocaster copy. Again, I don't use this instrument. I did, when I received it, it only had 3 strings on it, but I decided, I'll buy a full set of strings, put the full strings on it, and put it in E standard. And I do keep this on a wall in my room, just as memory of that coworker again, who was really awesome. So Tammy, if you are watching this, I am still holding on to this guitar, and still, wake up and see it every day. So thank you again for that. And then the final instrument I've got to showcase in this collection video, this is a mandolin, made by a company called K-Tone, kind of again more on the budget side of making budget-conscious instruments. I had started mandolin, I believe, my junior year of high school. It really wasn't something that's clicked with me at first. I don't know what it was. It just never made sense to me. But then, sure enough, earlier 2019, sorry, I decided that maybe it'd be worth giving a go to playing this again, or at least taking it seriously and learning it and recording it. And then so I decided, let's do it. So I ordered this mandolin. It's got a great, despite being a budget instrument, it's got great electronics. And in some of the just test recordings I've done with it already, it sounds stellar. And I've had to do little effects and processing to it, just even based off that. Of course, one of the big challenges with mandolin is you've got quite a tiny fingerboard here, and so it's kind of it's worth keeping your nails trimmed if you're going to play this instrument, especially on your fretting hand, because it does not feel good to get your string or your nail caught on one of these strings. No. So anyone that wants to take a mandolin, keep your fingers trimmed. And then kind of with this, it is in standard mandolin tuning, which it's always fun when I bring this out or hand it to a guitarist and they're like, it's always fun to hand it to a guitarist because the way mandolins are set up for tuning, if you have any experience maybe with violin, it's set up the tuning is the same way as a violin. So low to high, that's G, D, A, E, which is opposite, of course, of your standard 4-string bass tuning, which is low to high E, A, D, G. I think, having gotten into bass kind of made it somewhat easier to wrap my mind around this. And so this is one, again, still working out, catching up where I left off with what I had learned in the past. And of course, I've got aims to use this in a video as well. Yeah, that one's in the works, don't worry. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, everyone. Again, this was something kind of that had been on my mind for some time after, posting every year my pedals, how that's evolved since then. And, kind of the same thing applies with the music collection. Maybe I'll revisit this kind of video again in a year's time, and see if anything has changed, or maybe just kind of refresh and add any more fun stories with any individual instrument as in the future. That's something that can always change. Just adding, subtracting from things in your collection as a musician. And kind of again, one thing I would strongly iterate with any musician is, if you do have the means and you're really invested in wanting to learn something, and there is a slamming deal for you to get an instrument that would fit that need, go get it. And if you've got the ability to make that purchase, I would say go do it. That's basically my number one rationale for getting any new instrument. Is what role can I potentially use it with, and can I get that instrument at a price that I feel is a good deal to get that at. So with this video, I look forward to reading any and all comments that come in on this video, wherever you're watching this video from. Whether if you've got anything to say or just any questions, I am happy to answer questions the best of my ability, or at least try to point you in any direction that I can. But I love communicating with people, especially anyone who might have questions with starting out. Again, I'm not a go-to expert by any means, but I think I've got enough that I can at least help with getting started in some regard. And this is something I really never said in a video before, but you know what, I might as well get on the trend. If you like what I do, I've got a display of all my social media right here. You can keep up with me there, and especially if you're in the Denver area. I do play out quite a bit anymore, and I've got all sorts of fun shows that I announce on a regular basis and post about and post clips from. And I love getting to do that kind of stuff. I play all sorts of different things around town. If that's something that you like and you ever are interested in checking out a show, so all the social media is there for you. Thanks again, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great rest of your day, and Happy New Year.